So in today's world, AI is becoming more and more a part of our lives every day. And the more that we move into the future, the more AI is going to be more a part of our lives. And that kind of got me thinking, 10 to 15 years from now, I think we're going to be looking back at cameras like these and find them as a novelty, kind of like the same way we look at mini DV, Hi 8, and VHS cameras. So I figured it would be great to look into the future and kind of see where cameras will most likely be going. This is a AI PTZ streaming camera, and if you're a solo content creator, this little guy might become your new best friend. So let's check it out and see if it's worth adding to your camera collection. Hey there, welcome back to my camera collection. If you're new around here, we like to check out retro camcorders from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, along with checking out some other fun and unique camcorders like this PTZ streaming camera by Obsbot. So if you're into that kind of thing, maybe consider subscribing. So yes, this is the Obsbot Tail Air PTZ streaming camera. Now, Obsbot sent this out to me to do a review specifically recording action sports, as in like skateboarding and scootering. Now, this is marketed as a streaming camera, but you don't have to use it as just a live streaming camera. You can put a micro SD card in it and use it as any old camcorder, or camera, if you will. So you can take it on the go with you, or you can connect it to Wi-Fi and use it at home to do live streaming. I did take it on a trip down to Tucson, which is kind of why I haven't really posted much lately, as I've been testing this out and been out on my winter trip. And I went to some skate parks and stuff, along with checking out some little spots here and there around town to film with this little guy. So I'll show you some of the clips that I got with this camera, and then we'll talk more about the specs and the features and really just what I think about it. So let me know what you think of the test footage that comes out of this little camera. So I had nobody manning this camera. All of the movements and zooms and tilts and pans were all done by the camera itself because it has AI tracking. Now, with this camera, you can record in 4K or 1080p. All of my clips that I got were in 1080p just because my laptop is not fast enough to really edit 4K files, and it really struggles. So all the footage that you've seen is recorded in 1080p. But if you want to record in 4K, you can record all the way up to 30 frames per second, 25 frames per second, and 24 frames per second. And if you want to record in 1080p, you can record in 60 frames per second, 50 frames per second, 48 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 25 frames per second, and 24 frames per second. So that means that this is compatible with NTSC and PAL. Now, I didn't really get any clips in low light situations. I got a little bit here and there, but this camera is supposed to do very well in low light, and I think it does very good in low light. It's supposed to not be very grainy or noisy in low light. In my experience, it kind of seems like it has a little bit of a struggle tracking in low light conditions. If you're in more of a, brighter situation like we would be here, it does fine tracking you. Now, you might be wondering, well, if the camera is responsible for doing all the PTZ movements, and if you don't know what PTZ stands for, it stands for pan, tilt, and zoom, then how do you actually control the camera to get it to do what you want it to do? Well, you got 3 different ways of doing that. The first way is the mobile app, and the mobile app is called Obsbot Start. You can connect your camera to your phone just like you would with like a GoPro, a drone, or some other DSLR cameras. You can connect your phone to it through Bluetooth, although this one doesn't actually connect to your phone through Bluetooth. It connects to it either through Wi-Fi if you're at home. If you're using it on Wi-Fi, you can connect it to your phone really fast and really easy. It connects like really, really quick and generally doesn't have any issues. But from me using it, it kind of has some issues connecting to your phone. Sometimes if you're just using your cellular data, especially if you're in a location that doesn't have very good cellular data. Like there's spots around my town, for some reason, just don't get very good cell reception. Like out at my local skate park, it's always got terrible cell reception. And man, I just had like some struggles every once in a while connecting it to my phone when I was out on the go. So that was kind of a downside to it. So I think connecting it to Bluetooth would be a lot easier instead of your cellular data. But I get why they have it through your cellular data so that you can live stream on the go. But from the app, you can actually control all the settings for this little camera. You can control the zoom and like your manual controls like your ISO, your exposure, manual focus, your audio settings, your shutter speed, and your white balance, along with being able to watch your clips playback. And you can actually download the clips to your phone's gallery if you want to. Now, another cool thing that it does, if you have the camera pointed at somebody and you double tap on the person on the screen on your phone, it will start tracking the person. But you can actually go in and you can select a setting and you can draw a box around a person, a dog, an object, anything that you really want, and it's really object tracking. So you can use that to track things that aren't people, animals, cars, pretty much like living things that like the camera will actually recognize is like a person or an animal. And then it has another setting on it called gimbal and view. That pretty much just lets you use it kind of like a camera or like a camcorder. And it has a little joystick on it, along with being able to adjust the speed of your PTZ and your movements of the camera, along with being able to customly set your positioning presets. So for live streaming and stuff, you can actually go in and set 3 custom positioning presets, and you can actually go in and tap each one of those, and the camera will move to each of those directions depending on which one you have labeled for it. So this would work great for I think recording live events like seminars or maybe like a concert or like a church service or something like that, you can do quicker movements and positioning settings than you would just having to manually adjust where you want it to go. So having those quick positioning points will definitely make your recording a lot easier and faster. You can also live stream straight from the app, so you can actually go in and sign in on certain websites. It's compatible with YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and I don't really know how to pronounce it, but it's Kwai, Kwai. So you can go on there and you can actually give the app access to those websites and your accounts, and then it will allow you to live stream straight from your camera app. So I think that's actually super cool. I've never seen a camera app that allows you to live stream straight from the app. Now, the number 2 way that you can control it is by buying their smart remote. The smart remote allows you to control it similarly, but you don't get as many manual capabilities with it. So you can actually use up to 3 Obsbot Tail Airs to start live streaming, and you can actually use 3 of the different tail airs for different angles and stuff, and if you want to use more than just one tail air to live stream, you have to buy the remote for it. Now, the third way to control this camera is by hand gestures. Yes, you can control this by hand gestures. Now, what does that mean? Well, you got 4 different hand gestures that you can use with this. And the first one would be kind of just holding your hand up like this next to your face. And this will activate the human tracking on it. That kind of sounds terrible. But yeah, the human tracking. And you can stand in front of the lens and do this, and it'll recognize that, and it'll start tracking you, moving around and stuff like that. And then if you want it to stop tracking you, you just do this again, and it will stop tracking. The second hand gesture is the A-OK sign. So you do this and it will either start or stop recording. The third hand gesture is doing a L symbol like this, and it will make the camera do a 2x zoom on it. And you can actually go into the settings of the camera or in the app, and you can actually customize that to how far you want it to zoom in. Now, this camera does do up to a 4x digital zoom, so you can have it go all the way in or just a little bit, but the default setting is a 2x zoom. And then if you do a double L like this, it'll go into a dynamic zoom. So dynamic zoom is if you walk away from the camera, it will digitally zoom in as you walk away from it, and then it will zoom out as you move towards it. So that's what a dynamic zoom is. So those are the 4 different hand gestures that you can do. They're kind of the basic movements and stuff, but a lot of the nitty-gritty fine-tuning and stuff is you gotta have the app open. And those are all the ways that you can control this camera. So let's talk about some features on this guy. So this little thing has a 1 1/8 inch sensor in it that creates 8.4 million pixels, which is much more than we're used to talking about on this channel. Now, it apparently has 8 optical lenses in it. So within the lens assembly, there are 8 lenses in there. Like I said, it has a 4x digital zoom. So it doesn't have an optical zoom. So when you're all the way zoomed out with the digital zoom, the lens is a 23mm lens on it, which is decently wide. It's not as wide as it could be, but for live streaming and stuff, I think it works pretty decent. The lens is also a f1.8 aperture lens. You can get a little bit of a fuzzy background on it if you're close enough to the lens and it's doing like face tracking for it, or if you hold like a product or something up in front of the lens, it will kind of blur out the background a little bit. It's not super intense like this camera is, but there's a little bit there. It's not bad. It also has 2 built-in MEMS microphones on it, and you get a right one and a left one. There's a couple little dots here where the microphones are, and these honestly don't sound very good at all. When I first started using the camera, I noticed that the audio was just awful, and I went into the settings and kind of messed with the audio, and I think the setting was the onboard mic. I like turned it off or something, and for some reason that made the audio sound a lot better. So I don't really know like what that did or why it says onboard audio or onboard mic, But you can go into the settings and adjust the audio just a little bit, but I definitely recommend doing that if you do get one of these. And I think the audio sounds a lot better than it did when I first started recording with it. And along with the microphones, you do get a 3.5 millimeter microphone jack here, so you can have external audio for it. Looking at this, you can kind of see there's this little black bar right here, and it kind of looks like it would be like an infrared receiver, but it's actually a light bar, and so it does a bunch of different colors and blinking, and it kind of makes it look like it's like spiraling around it. There's a bunch of information in the user manual that will kind of indicate what the camera is doing and like the functions that it's doing and stuff. So when I first got the camera and I was messing around with it, I thought that the pan could go 360 degrees and like go around as many times as you wanted it to, and I was wondering why the heck it was like not working like that. So it actually doesn't do a 360 degree rotating pan on it, which makes sense because you still have cables and wires and stuff inside that wouldn't be able to twist 360 degrees. So it does rotate 160 degrees to the left and to the right. As long as you line up like the little Obsbot logo here with whatever you're recording, you can get a pretty good range of motion on the pan. It can actually tilt 90 degrees up, and it can tilt 90 degrees down. So definitely a lot more movement on the tilt than the pan, but I think both work really well. It can also pan and tilt at 120 degrees per second. So that's actually pretty quick. You know, like I think a fisheye lens is about 180 to 200 degree field of view. So being able to move at 120 degrees per second is pretty quick. So I've noticed if you're a little too close to the camera and you move out of frame really fast, or you just move left and right a little too fast, it has a little bit of trouble keeping up. So if you are going to have some form of fast movements, I would definitely stand back a little ways from the camera. That way it has time to adjust its movement while you are moving, if that makes sense. You do get 4 little blue lights here on the front, and those are your battery indicators. So on the left side of the camera, you get your micro SD card slot here, and it's a little finicky. I think the SD card, it kind of sits in there a little bit too deep. It's not like, you know, a make or break on the camera, but it just makes it a little bit finicky and kind of a pain to put in and take out. Now, along with that, you do get a micro HDMI port here, so you can hook it to your computer for live streaming and stuff like that. So on the back of the camera, on the back of the pan assembly, if you will, you get a little compartment here, and it's kind of, I think it's magnetic because it's kind of hard to get out. And you get 4 little connectors in there along with this, you know, cover piece. And I think it's so you can put in different accessories or something like that. And you also have some connectors here on the bottom. Along with that, you get the on-off button, along with a USB-C plug-in here. So that's how you charge the camera, and you can actually connect it to your laptop to live stream from that. And then on the right side of the camera, like I said, you get your 3.5 millimeter microphone jack there. You got your 1/4 inch threads here, along with a nice rubber ring here. So if you want to put it like table side and use it, like setting it on a table or a shelf or wherever you want to put it, has a nice little grippy pad on there so it doesn't slide around or anything. I actually didn't know that it had this until I was out filming with it. I tried setting it on, there was a metal picnic bench that I was trying to film myself from. It's magnetized on the bottom, so you can actually stick it to metal things. Now, I don't think it's strong enough to where you could stick it sideways or anything like that, but if you have a metal surface, you can actually stick it to it. And then with that rubber pad on the bottom, it gives you a lot more grip on there, which is super nice. So definitely your camera ain't going to be going anywhere. Have it stuck to a metal surface. So let's talk about a few of the specifications on this. The chip for the AI, it apparently does trillions of calculations per second. So the ISO range, it ranges between 100 and 6400. The exposure value, you can do -3 all the way up to +3 or +3. The maximum shutter speed is 1 in 8000. The video format, you can choose between H.264, H.265, or MJPEG. Now, if your battery is completely dead, it'll take 90 minutes to charge from 0 to 100%. And if you're recording at 1080p at 30 frames per second, you'll get about 154 minutes of battery if you have a full charge on it, which is about 2.5 hours. Going out and filming myself ride scooters, the battery lasts quite a while on it, so definitely a good battery life on it. Okay, so I have a couple things of recommendation for improvements. I'm not going to be super nitpicky about this, just because I think AI in cameras are kind of in its infant stage still, so they definitely will get better as time goes on. And if anybody out there has ever owned like a GoPro or even like your cell phone, Obsbot does updates and stuff like that. So they'll send updates out and you can actually update it through connecting it to your laptop or downloading the update file to an SD card, or you can do it straight from the app. So you can update this every time they get a new update out. So just because these are improvements for now doesn't mean it's a make or break for this camera, because I think it's things that can be updated in the future. Now, one thing that I do like is the tracking actually does pretty well at keeping you tracked. Like if people walk in front of you, sometimes it will start tracking other people. Generally, it will stay locked on you and keep you in focus. Not focus, but keep you tracked. But since Obsbot wanted me to test this for like skateboarding and scootering and stuff, going to skate parks with a lot of other people is definitely going to give this camera issues with tracking you. So it can get confused by other people walking in front of the camera or just other people moving around and stuff. If you're wanting to use this for some form of action sports, you definitely want to be at a skate park when nobody's there, or maybe go out to maybe like some street spots or something like that and try filming out there, which is kind of where I found that the best situations were. Sometimes skate parks were good, and then as soon as people started showing up, I just had issues. Hopefully that could be improved maybe in the future. Like I said, I used it in 1080p at 60 frames per second, and so that's going to be a little bit less resolution video quality than 4K is. When you're zoomed all the way out, the image looks really good, but when you're zoomed all the way in, it uses the digital zoom, so it can get a little pixely and kind of almost like out of focus. So if your computer can run 4K, I would definitely use 4K if you can. That way, when you do use the digital zoom, you'll have less pixelation and distortion and stuff while doing the digital zoom. Now, another thing that I think could be adjusted on, or maybe like a section that could be added. So when you select the human tracking or even object tracking, you can choose different kinds of dynamic zooms. So for human tracking, you can keep it in the wide angle, so it's zoomed all the way out. You can choose auto, which doesn't work how I wanted it to. It'll kind of just be all the way zoomed out, and then it'll just all of a sudden jump to super far, like zoomed in. So there's no like zooming in. It's just like this quick like video crop, from my experience anyway. So that's what auto did. You can also choose like half body or full body or close up with the human tracking. And so the best one for the dynamic zoom for filming at skate parks and action sports and stuff kind of seemed like it was either full body or wide. And a lot of the times when I used the full body, it had an issue keeping me in frame. It would delay the zoom out. So it would either cut my head off or it would cut my feet off. And so like as I'm doing the trick, you wouldn't be able to see like my feet, and so you would kind of just miss the trick. So a lot of times I had to actually just keep it in the wide angle mode and have it film. I think that Obsbot could possibly add a like maybe sports mode to it, to where it will maybe, I don't know, keep you better in frame than it does now. Because all it really needs is, it just needs to zoom out just a little bit sooner to keep you in frame a little easier. And there were times where it worked super good, and then there were times that it just did not want to do what I wanted it to do. And from my experience, it kind of seemed like if you had the camera sitting really far away, it had a better time with zooming out soon enough to keep you in frame. Now, if you had it too close, it kind of seemed like it didn't give itself enough time to zoom out fast enough. And then I also noticed that it had an easier time with the dynamic zoom if the camera sat up higher rather than if you had it at a low angle. Definitely having the camera farther away and at a higher point of view will definitely, I think, help the dynamic zoom. So you can actually choose the proposition on it. Pretty much it will kind of keep you either in the more of the top right or bottom right, top left or bottom left kind of portion of the screen. And so I would always adjust it so that the proposition was as high as I could make it, because if you left it in the center or if you made it down low, it would always cut your feet out. So if I did a tail whip or if somebody did a kickflip or something on a skateboard, you wouldn't even be able to see it. So making it kind of on the top would make the camera point down a little bit more. And then if you're moving, let's say you're moving to the left, you want to change the proposition to the right, because it will kind of keep itself ahead of you, which will keep it better in frame. So if you're moving to the left, you make the proposition more to the right, and then if you're moving to the right, you'll move the proposition to the left. And it seems like it helps with the camera keeping itself ahead of you. That way you're not moving out of frame if you're moving left and right. And if you're doing that, you definitely want to keep it a little bit farther away as well, and possibly keep it in the wide angle mode. Now, the number one thing that I would love to see on this camera, and I feel like it's a very simple addition to it, is I'd like to see just a cold shoe or a hot shoe. So because it has it has a 3.5 millimeter microphone jack on it. You can't mount any microphones anywhere. So really, you'd only be able to use a microphone that's like this. Like this is running out, and then I have a cable that's running over to the camera and it's plugging into it. So you'd only really be able to run something similar like that to this. So you couldn't really use like a Rode video mic, or in some of my old videos, I had some of those little wireless lavalier mics that like clip right here, and then it's wireless and you can clip it to your camera. So I think that if just a simple cold shoe was mounted somewhere on the body, that way you can actually just connect whatever kind of mic that you want to it. I feel like it kind of just limits what kind of mics you can use if you don't have a cold shoe attached to it. Obsbot, I definitely recommend putting a cold shoe on the body of the Tail Air, because it will definitely just make more microphones compatible with this camera. And again, those are just some recommendations for improvement. That doesn't mean that this camera is terrible. I think this is a great camera. It's just not quite tuned enough for action sports yet, I don't think. I think it's great for any kind of live streaming that you want to do. You could even vlog with this thing. I assume if you wanted to, you could use it with a tripod, take it anywhere really that you want to do live streaming on the go. And then if you have like a cooking show or something like that, you can have multiple Tail Airs and use them all for live streaming. And like I said, this is geared for live streaming, but you can use it in any kind of way that you really want to, because it is just a regular camcorder at the end of the day, if you want it to be. So it's a very versatile little camera. I think the video footage looks great out of it. You can actually do a lot more things with it than I've seen with a lot of other camera companies. And honestly, like the AI tracking with it is honestly like super unique. And I've never used a camera that's had AI. I didn't even know that cameras even had AI in them. Yeah, it can definitely make your viewing and camera using experience a lot easier and faster with this Tail Air. This camera does cost $500. And that might sound a little expensive, but comparing it to a GoPro Hero 12, we'll say, the GoPros are like $400. I know they're not in like the same category of what cameras they are, but for a camera that has AI and you can live stream with it, I think $500 is a great price point, especially because the AI is always updating. You can run an external mic on it, and it really just works really well in any kind of situation. So if I've piqued your interest at all, and you want to get one of these for yourself, I'll leave a link to Obsbot's website down in the description. I will have a discount code you can use for 5% off your order. If you do use that discount code, you will be supporting the channel. Or if you're more of a Amazon shopper, I'll have a link to this Obsbot Tail Air through an Amazon affiliate link. And if you buy anything through that Amazon affiliate link, you will be supporting the channel. So thank you, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to do just a little quick question of the day. What do you think of the Obsbot Tail Air? And do you think AI is the future of cameras and video content? Let me know in the comments if you think that AI will be more implemented into our cameras in the future. So thank you again, Obsbot, for sending this out to me. I really appreciate you reaching out and wanting me to test this out, doing some action sports filming. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like. And if you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe, because we talk about old school retro camcorders almost on a weekly basis. And on that note, we'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.